If you had told me a year ago that everything I believed about my family was a lie, I would have laughed. I mean, we were the picture-perfect family. Dad was the funny one, always telling these corny jokes at dinner. Mom was the serious one, but loving in her own guarded way. And me, I was just grateful. Grateful for them. Grateful for the life they gave me. Or at least, the life I thought they gave me. It all started last summer. I had just gotten engaged to my college boyfriend, Marcus. We were planning a small wedding. Backyard, fairy lights, homemade playlists. Very us. One afternoon, I was going through old photo albums, pulling out baby pictures for a wedding slideshow. You know, first steps, first day of school, all the usual stuff. Then, found it, tucked between 2 pages. A photo I had never seen before. It was of my mom. But not the mom I knew. This version of her looked different, younger, softer. And she was standing next to a man I didn't recognize. They were laughing, holding hands. Not Dad, someone else. I remember just staring at it. This weird feeling creeping up my spine, like something inside me already knew. Even before I asked, I took the photo downstairs and casually held it up at dinner. "Hey Mom, who's this?" asked, keeping my voice light. She froze. Dad immediately reached for his glass of water. And for a few seconds it was dead silent except for the ticking of the kitchen clock. "Oh, that was just a friend from college," she said, her voice too high, too quick. "Long time ago." Dad laughed, but it was forced. "Yeah, your mom had lots of old friends. Ancient history." I nodded. But something about the way Mom avoided my eyes, the way Dad changed the subject to my wedding colors, didn't sit right. And after that night I couldn't stop thinking about it. Over the next few weeks, little things started standing out. Conversations between them that hushed the second I entered the room. Mom lingering by my bedroom door, like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. And Dad started acting strange, like he was trying too hard to be normal, keep me laughing, to keep me distracted. And maybe I would have let it go. Maybe I would have buried it like they clearly wanted me to, if it weren't for Marcus. One night we were lying in bed, scrolling through baby name lists for fun. He looked at me and said, "You know, you don't really look like your dad." I laughed. "Yeah, I get my looks from Mom." But he tilted his head. "No, I mean, not even a little." It hit me harder than it should have. And suddenly it was like a dam inside me broke. "I don't know who that man in the picture was," I whispered. "And I think my parents are lying to me." Marcus squeezed my hand. "Maybe you should find out." I couldn't sleep that night. At 3 a.m. I found myself sitting in the dark, laptop open, ordering a DNA test. Part of me hated myself for doing it, for not trusting them, for needing proof. But another part of me, the part that had been silently screaming since that night at dinner, knew I couldn't unsee what I had seen. The kit arrived 2 weeks later. I swabbed my cheek, mailed it back, and waited. Days turned into weeks. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped. Until finally, the results came in. There it was, in black and white. Dad, the man who raised me, the man who tucked me in at night, who taught me how to ride a bike, was not biologically my father. And that was when everything cracked. I confronted my mom first. I waited until Dad was out mowing the lawn, the hum of the machine loud and steady. I cornered her in the kitchen, holding my phone out like a weapon. "You lied to me," I said, voice trembling. "All my life you lied." Her face went pale. She leaned against the counter, looking 10 years older in an instant. "I was going to tell you," she whispered. I didn't know how." I laughed, a short, bitter sound. "When? On your deathbed." Tears filled her eyes. "It was complicated, sweetheart. You were so little. He didn't want anything to do with us. Your real father." I shook my head. "Don't," I said. "Don't you dare make this about protecting me." She wiped at her face, but the tears kept coming. I loved you. We loved you. That's all that matters. But I couldn't even look at her. I stormed upstairs, heartbreaking, head spinning. Everything felt fake. Everything felt stolen. It's been a few days since that conversation. I haven't spoken much to either of them. I don't know how to be in the same house without feeling betrayed. Marcus keeps asking if I'm okay, but how do you explain the feeling of being a stranger in your own life? Last night, though, something happened that made everything even worse. I got an anonymous message. No name, no context, just 6 chilling words. You don't know the full story. And attached, a blurry photo of that same man. The man from the album, standing outside what looked like a courthouse, holding a baby. Me. So now I'm here, sitting in my car, staring at the address they sent me. The address of the man who might actually be my real father. I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I want to open this door. The truth is already halfway out. And some truths, once you start digging, you can't just bury them again. Long pause. Should I walk up to that door? Or should I drive away and pretend I never saw it? What would you do? I don't even remember grabbing the door handle. 1 second, I was staring at the address glowing on my phone screen, heart hammering against my ribs. And the next, I was standing outside a small, weathered house on the edge of town, peeling white paint. A wind chime clinking in the late afternoon breeze. It didn't look like the kind of place where your whole life would change forever. But there I was, standing on the porch, hand raised, frozen. I thought about turning around, about getting back into my car and pretending none of this ever happened. But something deeper, something angrier, kept my feet planted. I deserved answers. I deserved the truth. So I knocked. 3 sharp taps. Loud enough that I couldn't take it back. Seconds passed. Then footsteps. The door opened a crack, the chain still latched. An older man peered through. Mid-50s maybe, scruffy beard, tired eyes. Yeah, he said, voice rough. For a second I couldn't speak. All I could do was stare. Because even through the chain, even after all these years, could see it. The slope of his nose. The curve of his jawline. My nose. My jawline. He blinked. You okay, kid? I swallowed hard. I think you're my father, I said, my voice barely a whisper. His face paled. And for a long, long moment, he just stared at me. Then he unlatched the chain and opened the door wider. Come in, he said. The inside of the house smelled like old books and coffee. Stacks of papers lined the floor. Dust floated in the sunbeams leaking through the windows. He motioned toward the couch. I sat, hands gripping my knees so hard they shook. He lowered himself into the armchair across from me, the springs groaning under his weight. You're Amy's kid? He asked. He nodded. My name's Hailey, I said quietly. He rubbed his face with both hands, like he was trying to wake up from a bad dream. She never told you, he said, half to me, half to the empty room. She told me nothing, I said, bitterness leaking into my voice. He leaned back, exhaling slowly. I didn't leave because I wanted to, he said after a moment. They forced me out. My heart skipped. What do you mean? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Your dad, the man who raised you. He didn't just step up because he loved your mom. He made her cut ties with me. Gave her an ultimatum. I shook my head. No, my dad's not like that. He raised an eyebrow. Isn't he? I didn't know what to say. Everything inside me screamed that he was lying, that this was some twisted revenge fantasy. But deep down, there was that same feeling I had when I found the photo. That something isn't right feeling. You were going to be my whole world, he said softly. I wanted to be there for every birthday, every scraped knee, every stupid art project. Tears pricked my eyes. But why didn't you fight for me? I whispered. Why didn't you come back? He looked away. Because I wasn't allowed. He opened a drawer beside him and pulled out a thick, wrinkled manila envelope. He tossed it onto the coffee table, Those are the court papers, he said. Restraining order. Gag order. All signed by your mother and your dad. My hands trembled as I reached for it. Inside were dozens of documents, official-looking stamps, signatures, terms I didn't fully understand. But one thing was clear. They had legally barred him from contacting me. I sat there numb while he talked about how my mom had been scared, how my dad had offered her security, stability, things my real father couldn't give her at the time, how she had been persuaded, manipulated. I didn't know what hurt more, the fact that my mother lied, or the fact that she let someone else erase half of me. I thought about you every day, he said, voice breaking. I never stopped loving you. I couldn't hold it together anymore. Tears spilled over. This man, this stranger, loved me from a distance, while I grew up thinking he didn't even exist. I don't know what to believe, I sobbed. He leaned forward, his voice rough. Believe what's in front of you, Hailey. Believe your own eyes. When I finally left, the sun was setting. I sat in my car, clutching the envelope to my chest. And then, my phone buzzed. Another anonymous message. Be careful. They're watching you. My blood turned to ice. I looked around. At the empty street, the dark windows. Nothing. No one. But suddenly, I didn't feel so alone. Suddenly, it felt like someone was out there, watching, waiting. And for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I realized this wasn't just about a hidden father. There was more, much more. And whoever had sent those messages, they weren't finished with me yet. Long pause. I just have one question now. What else have they been hiding? The second I got home, I locked every door and drew the curtains. I didn't know who sent the message, or what they meant by, they're watching you. But I couldn't ignore the creeping sensation under my skin anymore. Something about my life. My entire life wasn't just hidden. It was protected, covered up, controlled, by people who were supposed to love me. I sat at the kitchen table, heart racing, the manila envelope still clutched to my chest. And I made a decision. I was done playing it safe, done pretending. If they wanted to hide the truth, then I was going to drag it into the light. The first step was simple. Talk to Mom. Not accuse. Not scream. Just maybe, just maybe, she'd finally tell me the truth if she saw that I wasn't backing down. So I waited until after dinner, when Dad was out walking the dog. Mom was sitting at the kitchen counter, sipping her tea, flipping through a magazine like it was just another Tuesday. I stood across from her, my hands trembling slightly. Mom, I said, voice low. I need to know everything. She looked up, startled. Hailey, we all ready? No, I cut her off, firmer this time. Not half-truths. Not excuses. I pulled out the photo from the album, the one with her and my real father. I laid it down in front of her like evidence. I met him. Her hand flew to her mouth. Tears welled in her eyes almost immediately. You don't understand, she whispered. Then help me, I said. Make me understand. For a long moment, she just cried silently. And then she told me. Turns out, there was a lot more to the story. My real father, Caleb, and my mother were high school sweethearts, deeply in love. But Caleb came from the wrong side of town. Broken family, bad reputation, no future prospects. When Mom got pregnant, my grandparents panicked. They didn't want their daughter tied to trash, as they put it. They pressured her into marrying someone better, a man from a good family. My dad, the man who raised me. According to her, it wasn't like she didn't love me. She thought she was doing what was best. Clean life, stable family, no scandal. She wiped her tears on her sleeve. I thought, if you never knew, you'd never feel torn. You'd be happy. Happy. It almost sounded kind the way she said it. Except, it wasn't. It was betrayal. Beautifully wrapped in good intentions. I deserved the truth, I whispered. She nodded miserably. I know. I see that now. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But deep down, something still didn't add up. Because if it was just about shame, just about protecting me, then why was someone warning me now? That night, after Mom went to bed, I sat in my room scrolling through my phone, reading the message over and over. Be careful. They're watching you. I was about to put the phone down when it buzzed again. Another anonymous message. This one was even shorter. Just 3 words. Check the attic. My blood ran cold. The attic. I hadn't been up there in years. Not since I was a kid playing hide and seek. It was where old Christmas decorations and dusty furniture went to die. I grabbed a flashlight and crept up the creaky pull-down stairs, heart hammering so loudly I was sure the neighbors could hear it. The attic was dark. Mostly. The beam of my flashlight swung over old trunks, yellowed newspapers, boxes labeled Hailey's baby stuff. I started digging for what I didn't know. And then, behind a broken lamp and a rolled-up carpet, found it. Black metal box. I hauled it down and sat cross-legged on the attic floor. The lock was old and rusty. I jammed a screwdriver into it, prying until it finally snapped open with a loud crack. Inside were papers, photos, letters. I rifled through them, my hands shaking. A hospital birth record. Name. My birth date. But the father's name wasn't the man who raised me. It was Caleb, stamped official. Tears blurred my vision. Buried beneath it was a stack of old letters. Dozens of them. All from Caleb. All addressed to me. Each one starting with, Dear Hailey. Some were birthday cards. Some just rambling letters about how much he missed me, what he was doing, dreams he had for my future. I pressed one to my chest and cried. He never forgot me. He never abandoned me. They just never let me see. At the very bottom of the box, I found one last envelope. It was newer, less dusty, written in careful, blocky handwriting. Open only if you truly want the whole truth. My fingers hovered over the seal. Some instinct deep inside me screamed that whatever was inside was going to change everything again. But before I could tear it open, heard it, sharp creak behind me. The unmistakable sound of someone stepping onto the attic stairs. My heart seized. I wasn't alone. Slowly I turned around, flashlight trembling in my hand. A shadow moved at the edge of the attic hatch. Closer, closer, and then a familiar voice whispered from the darkness. You weren't supposed to find that. Froze. The flashlight slipped from my hand, clattering to the attic floor and throwing wild, spinning shadows across the walls. You weren't supposed to find that, the voice said again, closer this time. It was my dad, the man who raised me. He stood halfway up the attic ladder, staring at me with an expression I couldn't read. Not anger exactly. Something worse. Fear. Desperation. He climbed the rest of the way up, slow, careful steps like I was some wild animal that might bolt. Put it back, Hailey, he said quietly. His voice was soft, almost pleading. Put the letters back. Forget you ever saw them. I shook my head, heart hammering against my ribs. I know the truth, I said. I know Caleb's my real father. He flinched at the name, like it physically hurt to hear it out loud. Still he took another step toward me. You don't understand everything, he said, low and urgent. It wasn't just about protecting you from him. There's more. I clutched the envelope tighter against my chest. What else? I demanded. Tell me. He opened his mouth, closed it again. I could see it, the war happening behind his eyes. Then, thud downstairs, a door slamming, Mom's voice calling up. Everything okay? Dad looked back toward the hatch, then back at me. His face hardened. We'll talk in the morning, he said, voice clipped. Nothing good comes from digging up old graves at night. And just like that, he was gone. Barely slept. I sat on my bed, the black metal box beside me, the envelope still unopened. My mind spun in endless circles. What else could they be hiding? What could be worse than lying about who I am? part of me was terrified to know. But a bigger part, the part that felt like it had been asleep my whole life, refused to let go. Just before dawn I made my choice. I carefully peeled open the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper. And at the top, in shaky handwriting, were 6 words. "If you're reading this, run." I stared at the paper, my breath catching in my throat. Run. From what? From who? Beneath the note was an address, an old P.O. box number, and a name I didn't recognize. David Weller. No explanation, no context, just that gut-wrenching warning. I googled the name immediately. Nothing obvious came up. No recent news, no social media accounts. But when I added my town's name after it, a very old article popped up. From 18 years ago. The headline made my stomach drop. Local man arrested for blackmail, alleged ties to organized crime. The photo was grainy, but there he was, David Weller, standing next to Caleb, my real father. My mind reeled. Organized crime. Blackmail. How was Caleb involved? Was this what Dad meant when he said there was more? Was this why they cut him out of my life, not just because he was poor but because he was dangerous? But then I thought about the letters. The way he wrote to me. The way he talked about dreams, about being better, about making a life for us. Didn't add up. Nothing did. I knew what I had to do. I had to find Caleb again. I had to ask him myself. Because no one in this house was going to give me straight answers. I threw a few things into a backpack, just essentials. Phone charger, cash, a sweater. I scribbled a quick note for my mom. "I'm safe. I need answers. I'll come back when I'm ready." I left it on the kitchen counter. Heart hammering so hard I thought it might rip out of my chest. I had one address for Caleb, the one from the day before. I just hoped he hadn't moved. Or disappeared. Or worse. The streets were empty as I drove across town. The sun barely breaking over the horizon, painting everything in gold and gray. When I pulled up to Caleb's house, it looked exactly the same as before. Still weathered, still lonely. I sprinted up to the door and knocked hard. No answer. I knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. Panic started to creep in. Was I too late? Was he? Just as I was about to turn away, the door cracked open. But it wasn't Caleb. It was a woman, maybe late 30s. Tired eyes, holding a sleeping toddler on her hip. "Can I help you?" she asked. I'm looking for Caleb," I said, voice shaking. The woman's face twisted. Confusion, then something almost like pity. "You haven't heard," she said softly. My mouth went dry. "He's gone," she said. "Left town 2 days ago." 2 days ago. Before I even knew the truth. I staggered back a step. "Did he say where he was going?" Choked out. She shook her head slowly. "No, but..." She hesitated, glancing down the street like she was scared someone might see her talking to me. Then she stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Before he left, he said if a girl with your description showed up, I should give her this." She reached into the diaper bag slung over her shoulder and pulled out a small, battered notebook. I took it with trembling hands. On the cover, written in dark ink, was a single phrase. "Trust no one." I clutched the notebook to my chest. 1,000 questions buzzing through my brain. Why had Caleb run? What was in this notebook? And most importantly, if I couldn't trust my parents, if I couldn't even trust Caleb, then who was left? Pause. I glanced back at my car, at the empty street, and then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glint of something shiny in the bushes across the road. Something that looked suspiciously like camera lens, watching me, recording me, following every move I made.